Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome in. Friday afternoon, weekend coming up. You made it. We got a fun show for you guys. I'm Jesse Montano. She's Meghan Angley. And that's Evan Rawal, your favorite Avs Twitter follow. We got a great show for you guys, continuing our Beatmate series here for this week. But I do want to start by reminding you guys about our great new friends over at RefiJet. Did you know that you could refinance your auto loan? Well, with RefiJet, you could save around $150 every month, all with just a soft credit pull and zero hassle. Lower payments, flexible terms, and maybe even some cash back from your car's equity. RefiJet does the work. You get the savings. Start today at RefiJet.com, the faster, easier way to refinance. Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. All right, so apparently the term Beatmate is out. I'm 0 for 2 on that this week on referring to folks as our Beatmates. Welcome in. This is Guerrilla Sports Off Ice. I'm Jesse Montano. She's Meghan Angley, and we are joined today by the Denver Gazette's Evan Rawal. Evan, how is it going? How has your summer been? Thanks for coming by.
It's been good. I used to be the type of guy who's like, oh, I'm ready for the season to start. Now I'm like, I'm enjoying my summer.
Yeah.
Because then it's just like a 9-month grind. So
that sounds healthy.
So I'm starting to like get back into it. I've been doing some Broncos stuff here. And then we're gonna go get rolling here.
So I've had to do 1 day out at Broncos this year, or this summer so far. I am so grateful that the Avs in the NHL do not run their practices the same way you can only shoot, you only film certain players, you can only stand in certain areas. And then at one point they came over and they were like, you can film everything but the ball and the quarterback. And I was just like, what are these rules?
Yeah, I was bugging Kyle Fredrickson about it. And then I was like, well, what do I care? I'm not going to be tweeting out about this. Like, it doesn't matter to me. But it is very strict, that stuff. But also, like, it's long days, and that camp started end of July, and that season they don't start for like 2 more weeks. It's like so long, and I don't know. I'm doing a fun story. I'll tease it here about how the Broncos they have helped build girls flag football in Colorado. Nice. How it's the fastest growing sport in Colorado high school sports. So I'll have that in a couple weeks, but beyond that, like, I'm happy to get back to hockey.
That honestly does sound like a cool story. Andy, one of our editors upstairs, she plays in a women's flag football league, and I saw her like editing a little video. Like, it's intense. Like, that is not, like, it's not just like, oh, let's go there and like have some fun. It's like, no, we're here to win.
We met one of the players that's in a more like legitimate flag football league at the Girls in the Game event, and she had her own player card. It was so cool.
Sick.
Yeah,
I love that.
It was
cool. It's going to be an Olympic sport.
Oh my gosh, that's
Olympics,
right.
so.
This upcoming cycle. That's right. I forgot about that.
Start training.
Men's and women's?
I don't know that. I know men's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about it, but yeah.
I saw the Jalen Hurts commercial where he throws the football into the Olympic flame.
Yeah.
And that's right. I forgot about that. Well, Evan, we want to talk a little bit about not only the summer and the moves that they've made, but we had Corey on earlier this week and just get a little bit of your perspective on the way that last season ended. But I guess we should start with the most recent news that we haven't really officially talked about yet. You did a piece on TikTok. I did a quick little 60-second insert into our pod so people know we weren't ignoring it. But Victor Olofsson gets a 1-year deal, essentially $1.5 million to slot in there. I believe the ideal situation for them is probably him being placed on that third line as a middle six option. So I guess, Evan, we'll start with you. Just your initial reactions to seeing the deal. When it was floating out there that it was $800K, I was like, you're kidding me.
Hell yeah.
But I think 1.5 is a little bit more appropriate.
Yeah, it's you knew they were going to do something. I'm a little surprised they brought in another winger. I think thought was they'd probably look for a center here, but you can't say no to depth. Adding him and year two's favorite player, Joel Kiviranta.
Whoa, leave me out of this. That's his thing.
I know, Jesse.
Hey, we all feel the way we feel, all right?
But I think it raises the floor of this team. And I think one of the biggest problems last year was they played like 50 players, but I think a big reason for that is just like a lot of those AHL guys just weren't good enough. Mm-hmm. And I still think that's kind of a problem where that's a very good AHL team, but you just have these quadruple A players who are not effective at the NHL level. So you raise the floor by bringing in 2 NHL players, and you allow guys like Gavin Brindley to just grow in your second year as a pro, things like that. Ivan, if he doesn't make the team again, he can keep playing there. So it raises the floor. I'm very interested to see his fit because I'm a little worried that it's going to be a Thomas Tatar type thing where he doesn't necessarily fit what they want to do in the bottom 6. He can't necessarily find like a great role at even strength, but we'll see how that plays out because even then, like it's very low risk because they traded Tatar for like a 4th round pick. They still got something for him. So it's very low risk. He could potentially he's a guy they'll probably look at on the power play, the first unit when the regular preseason starts. So no issues with this signing, and it's not league minimum, but it's not too far off.
Well, and with the being able to flip it, that was something that we did discuss on that episode talking about Kiviranta, where it's like, gosh, if you really get to a point where you don't like this, that's an easy enough contract flip. Megan, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Olofsson was a name that was on a couple of your lists at the beginning of the summer as a potential depth add. And then, like I said, you did that piece for TikTok talking about the compliment to Ross Colton. And we've spent a lot of time here over the last couple of weeks saying this is a guy who was literally out loud asking for, offensive and skilled help by the time the regular season ended last year. That was kind of my initial thought when I saw this. When you saw the news come across, where did your brain kind of go immediately?
It immediately went back to cool guy. And Evan doesn't know what I mean by that, but I fear my feelings about Kiviranta have been misrepresented. I said I would reserve full judgment on the Kiviranta signing until I saw...
Yeah, after she dragged him through the mud. No, I'm just kidding.
I certainly did not. Until I saw what they did with the rest of the third line. Because to me, I could only evaluate Kiviranta if I saw how the rest of this line was going to look. And so Olofsson gives me a little bit of clarity then. And Cool Guy became this all-purpose player that I would talk about as being whatever this additional move is. And I think, like Evan, I would have hoped he would be a center as well. But I also see that as a position that maybe they want to take some time with and be very intentional about filling at some point, and giving Jack Jury his time in the sun to evaluate how he fits in there with a little more regular reps in the regular season. So all that to say, with Olofsson, I started thinking about Cool Guy and how sometimes you get two in your head projecting what the perfect cool guy might be. And sometimes it's not so much about finding the cool guy, but finding the right guy and the available guy. And that's Victor Olofsson in this case.
Available is a great word.
Because what I wanted for Ross Colton was somebody with a little more puck skill and finish and a distributor of the puck. And so what Olofsson is obviously more of a shooter, but it doesn't hurt to have two shooting threats on a line. And maybe that opens up Ross Colton to be then more of the puck mover on that line. And now you just have two shooting options as well. It doesn't hurt one, obviously, with a lot of success in this league in goal scoring. But I think with Olofsson, there's still a little more puck skill that was greatly absent. Like when I talk about a third line with Kiviranta on it that I liked once upon a time, it was Colton Wood and Kiviranta. And what I liked was kind of the blue collar things that they did together. I don't know that that wasn't represented in what Charlie Coyle brought to the lineup last year. And so what they discovered was still lacking. One is Ross Colton got hurt. So we just didn't get to fully realize that third line. And the other was, I think it's just missing a little bit of that finish. And so Victor Olofsson certainly can bring that. And to Evan's point, I think his baptism into a high buy-in team under Vegas this last year is a good transition then to this Colorado Avalanche team, because I do have concerns about how he'll hold up defensively, his two-way game in Colorado, but I think his experience in Vegas helps to at least better prime him to have a little more success in Bednar's system.
He had a good year last year from like a defensive metrics standpoint. And again, you do have to ask that question. I tend to think that it's more what you said, that like, hey, that's a good first step. Now the Avs are going to have, you're asking him to build on it, not, hey, completely develop this new part of your game. But I do wonder if there is still a little bit of a slow play here, to your point on, we're going to find the right center. We're going to take our time on that. We have options that you can put there. Parker Kelly, Jack Drury. And then we're going to find that kind of distributor. Evan, I do think some of my Kiviranta hate has been taken. I just don't think he's a third line player. Like, I don't think you want to get into the playoffs with him. And so now that you have two wings that you like, do you like Ross Colton better on the wall?
I think the Avs do. And I certainly think he's going to play there. They had a million chances to move him back to center last year, and they just didn't do it.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
So, I see this and I say, okay, like there's a couple quality wings, and then you take your time, finding the right fit, confidence level in his defensive game, repeating or at least looking similar to what it was last year.
We'll see. It's tough when it's 1 year, where the other 5 or 6 years don't look anything like that. Now, is it Vegas or is it Olofsson is a real question, but it's a Buffalo thing that you all have to consider. But also it was so bad and it was so consistent there that it's like, okay, well, that might just be who he is. You look at who he played with last year. His centers were, and it was all pretty even. William Karlsson, Jack Eichel, Tomas Hertl, 3 really good centers who are also good defensively. Unless he finds his way into the top 6, that's probably not going to happen here. And I do think Jack Drury, I have no issues with them starting the season with Jack Drury at the third line, because I think that's going to be their goal, is to find another center there. But also, I don't know who's getting the puck to Olofsson on that third line. So that's kind of my concern there. But it's going to be an interesting fit, because he does have to prove that it wasn't just a Vegas thing, like that he can play on a good team and fit in well. If you're hitting opening night with Jack Drury in the middle, Ross Colton, Victor Olofsson, and then that leaves you Kiviranta, Parker Kelly, thank you. Oh my gosh. And then you got a call up, spot there for whatever, a month, 2 months while you work OC back in. I feel a lot more comfortable with that than 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Jack Drury is perfectly serviceable there, because we saw glimpses of him in that role last year when he made the leap over from Carolina, and he fit in pretty well. So I think he can handle it. Obviously, I'd like to see something a bit different, though, come playoffs. And it's a little bit of, I'll draw a weird parallel to the third line, what it could be in the 2022 team, the utility and reliability of a JT Compher type. I think that Jack Drury would aspire to be that one day, but we're not quite in that room. And that utility actually makes a lot of sense for what this line would need, because I kind of view parallels to Andre Burakovsky's role on a third line for that Avs Cup team. Like, it can be a bit one-dimensional in what it is, but it can be timely as well. And I obviously want to set the expectation even higher for Victor Olofsson, because Andre Burakovsky, by the end of his time, though a very helpful player, was rotated in and out of the lineup in that cup run. So I think they could seek to emulate a little bit of the construction of that line, and Ross Colton certainly adds something a bit different there. But I'm looking to the utility of JT Compher as a key piece as to why Burakovsky worked on the third line in the cup run, and that's why it's important not to punt on finding a very good 3C when this is all said and done.
Yeah. Much better situation to be in, saying we need to dial in a 3C rather than a 2C, a starting goaltender, something like that. 3-time 20 goal scorer for Victor Olofsson, 28 goals is a career high, 15 goals last year in just 56 games. Though, to Evan's point, there's a bit of context to that, played with some really high-end players for Vegas. Any other thoughts on Olofsson? I mean, I think this is a nice depth add.
That's the thing, is that the Avs have some injury-prone players in that top 6. He's not the worst guy. Now you have him and Colton there that can step in, so you feel better than your favorite player stepping in the top 6.
Doesn't this interestingly change the complexion of the power play, or am I being too silly, in that they've always heavily leaned on that top unit? And I look at the success of the second unit in Florida over these last playoffs, and I just wonder, with so many more options now with Brent Burns and now Victor Olofsson for a second unit, do we see a little bit more of it this season, or is it more like guys are rotating between the units, but it's still heavily leaned on that top?
I mean, I think you're going to have a hard time getting Nate off the ice on the power play. We've always seen that. So I think it's still mainly going to be one unit, but it could be a thing where it's like Nate just stays on the ice and they rotate some guys around him. I think it's going to be fascinating to see that top unit because I think they're going to try different things. And we don't really know if Dave Haxtell is going to, who we're assuming is going to run the power play, is going to just completely change things up. I doubt that it's going to be like a complete overhaul. But Olofsson is maybe the one guy who is potentially best suited to be that shooter on the Mikko side that they haven't really had.
Lefty.
So, because they put Gabe there in the playoffs and it was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Like, he's never played the spot, even in his prime, like when he was playing there, because he was always along the goal line or just in front of the net. So, Olofsson could get a look there. I do wonder about Brock Nelson because Haxtell is the only guy he's familiar with is Brock Nelson because he coached him at North Dakota. So I think he's probably going to be more of a staple in that top unit than we think, because he was also a really good power play player and with the Islanders.
What do you think,
so
like bumper spot on the top unit?
yeah, mostly. So it's going to be interesting how they change it up, because my argument would be they should be moving Kale around. Like I think Kale should be a shooter like along the wall, because that's what he did in college, and I think you just want your two best shooters to be along the wall if you can do it.
Well, and when him and Nate, for a long time, I think before Netches showed up and you had a third righty, they worked a really good, switch. You draw a lot of eyeballs. Nate would kind of circle out high. Then suddenly you had Kale loaded up in that one-timer spot on the wall. The other part of it too that I think makes your question interesting is Brent Burns. Like this is another guy that is a lot of success on the power play. Corey pointed out, like this is a guy who's very good at shooting through traffic, shooting for sticks. I feel like there's been times where that second unit has been rolled out there before with the personnel that they've had. And it's like, well, I see why they're not playing this unit very much. I think you're going to have some intriguing options, assuming health. I think you're going to have some intriguing options on that second unit, but yeah, Nate's got to come off the ice for that to happen.
He's more of a shooter than like Sam. Sam's not really a threat to shoot when he's in that wall position. So, which
is why it shocked me so how often that he'd take a little bit of space and then drop it to Taves for the one-timer. It's like, I can't believe people are still biting on Gerard potentially shooting that. But hey, so yeah, power play is going to have an interesting dynamic shift this year. You got more options.
Do you like the hire of Haxtell? I think I saw more polarizing views than I expected.
It's just so hard to judge. Like, yeah, he wasn't a great NHL head coach, but like a lot of guys aren't head coaches at the NHL level, but they can be good assistants. Like we just don't know. And he seemed to have a successful tenure as the assistant with Toronto.
Right.
So, and I don't think this is like a pressure Jared type thing. I think it's just like this was a guy we felt was a good fit. He's been a coach for a while, and we'll see how it plays out, because I think Ray Bennett took a lot of the blame last year, but like the players just didn't get it done too. Like it's not like he's out there trying to score. So it's interesting that we'll see how this works as the first new assistant coach in years in Colorado. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions about it, but this is just kind of like a wait and see type thing.
Like you said, Ray Bennett wasn't out there holding Marty Netches in place. He made that decision himself not to move.
All of them in place, really.
Right? Yeah. Geez.
Although he did put Gabe on the wall.
All right. Well, let's go back a little bit. That was as heartbreaking an end to an Avs season as I can remember in a long, long time. Not just that they lost, that they gave up a third period lead, but obviously who was on the other side, how it all went down. What do you remember from that series and kind of how it, and from your perspective, has shaped what they did this summer?
I mean, I get why Sakic and them said we'd run it back with the same team, and they essentially are running back with the same team, because they should have won that series. Like they did blow it. Like if we really think about it, they blew that. They had 3 third period leads and they didn't close the door, and they lost all three of those games. So, it's I haven't really thought about it much, because I'm like, I'm just moving past it, and I'm so sick of the Mikko stuff. Like I'm so sick of the Mikko hate that I just don't even want to talk about it. So I'm just like, But it's a series they should have won. they didn't win, and they have to live with that. And now here we are, because after Nate scored in the third period of that game 7, I was looking up flights to Winnipeg, like, oh, how are we going to do this? Because it's going to be a quick turnaround. And then 30 minutes later, it was over. So it was a rough one, and they've had all summer to think about it. And I'm interested to see, because like this is kind of the first camp in a few years where it's like there's not question marks. Like they kind of know what their team is, and it's time to get to work.
I don't know if we should stick on Dallas or we can move on.
It's up to you. I'm just here for the ride.
Cool. I wanted to talk about the Brock Nelson extension. I feel like it relates to the Dallas series a little bit. I think people were left underwhelmed because he didn't have the offensive impact, but nobody really did in that series. So I was curious, Evan, how you overall felt about the extension.
I'm fine with it. Like, especially when you look at the center market this summer, like there was just nothing there.
What do you mean, Mikhail Granlund for $7 million for 3 years?
Still crazy when I think about the fact they did that.
And he's not even really I wouldn't even consider him to be a full-time center too.
I agree.
So listen, Brock Nelson, like that line, if you look at the numbers, they were very good when they were on the ice. They just couldn't score, which is obviously the point of the game. But he's also a guy who had played in one spot forever. He didn't have his family here. Like, he did pretty well here. He wasn't great, I would say. He was pretty inconsistent. So I'm interested to see how it works with him with a full camp where he's comfortable. He's got his family here. He's settled, and he knows his role and what's expected of him, because the expectations are now going to be higher than just a guy that was potentially just like a ringer for a couple months.
Yeah. And that's why because it was something you and I talked about right away after the Dallas series of not only, man, is that a bummer if you just lose him now for nothing, but I think you were the one that made the point of you'd like to see this group be able to run it back, because that was such a heartbreaking loss. You would think that that's something that this group would want to rally around and be able to build on. So I think them bringing a guy like that back in, it's not just that, you have your 2 seed issue solved for this year, but it's, okay, this is another guy who remembers the sting of what we just went through. And you would hope, we're not showing up to camp with question marks, that those are guys that are just saying, yeah, I'm here to get to work. Olympic year. Guys are highly motivated. And I think it's good to bring guys back that went through that, whatever that was, 3 months ago.
I also think it's good for the organization that, like, after they won the cup, all those guys, they were able to convince to come back, because, you win. Colorado's typically not like a free agent destination, because the travel, I think, is a big part of it. Like, this team has to travel a lot. Facilities, I think, is also a big part of it. But also, like, they were able, like, when he was talking in the playoffs and you talked to him, I was like, I had the feeling, I was like, I don't think he's coming back. Like, I think he's, like, it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So to convince him to come back, I think is a big win for the organization, because it's a good sign for future free agents if they ever have to go that route. And also they need a guy like that down the middle. So I think it's a good win overall. The third year, like, if he had hit free agency, it sounded like maybe he would have gotten 4. Right. So to convince it for 3, even if the price is high, I think is good. What's he going to look like when he's 35, 36? That's a future problem that you figure out down the line. But I think for these next 2 years, you feel pretty good about what's going on with your second line center.
When the advanced metrics of that line, once Gabe Landeskog joined Nelson and Nichushkin, like, we got to see what Gabe is this year in terms of availability and that type of stuff. But I think that's a second line that there's reason to be excited about based on real results that we saw, that, like you said, puck didn't go in, for them a lot, but like there was a lot of things that they were doing. And maybe one of the more disappointing parts of that run is that we didn't get to see those 3 continue to work together beyond, what was it? Was game 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah. There's a lot of things Brock Nelson does well that don't jump off the page coming out of losing the 7-game series, but I think he's a solid defensive player with a good stick, leads the league in takeaways at the end of each season, and it adds an extra complement to what that line can accomplish together that I think we didn't get to fully realize. And I think offensively too, that was part of getting acclimated and learning his role on this team, and how to create with these players specifically. And obviously Landeskog being introduced so newly into the fold at the end of this last year, I think will be a big difference maker then in having some consistency out the gate for Brock Nelson.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, like you're not you're not having to have that discussion right now of like, well, what do you do? What assets do you have that could help you bring in a 2C? And I think you made a great point, Evan, on like, you got a guy to come back.
Mm-hmm.
That's not nothing. I agreed with what you said off the top of like, I understand why they wanted to run it back as closely as they possibly could. You do lose Jonathan Drouin. You add Brent Burns. There's some small tweaks here and there throughout the lineup. I guess just what are your thoughts on what they've done, the guys they chose to retain, letting a guy like Drouin walk, and then the add of a guy like Brent Burns, which I think really makes a difference on their back end. Like I really like that back end they've got now.
Yeah, I think it's been a fine offseason. I don't think it's been a great one. I think it's been quiet, which is probably what they wanted. Like they made so many trades and so many things last year that I think they were like, okay, we need to let this team settle. Like we can't just keep changing the chemistry over and over again. And they did make some moves this summer. I think the Charlie Coyle thing, we're going to see how that works out, because when you give up center depth, it's hard to get it back.
Yeah.
So there's no guarantee that they're going to find that replacement. But I think it's been fine. Like if you look at this team right now, comparing the teams post-Cup, like entering training camp, I think this is probably the best situation they've been in since the Cup, because they're not entering camp. Like I've heard good things about Val Summer, like that he's doing things to get better and learn about what he's been going through. But like you don't have that question mark around him right now. You don't have I guess we'll see. Like Gabe seems fine. Like you don't have that question mark around him. And then last year, like you didn't, like Georgie was coming off a terrible year. You're like, what are you going to get? And then we saw what we got. So you feel good about what's going on in net, and you're comfortable with the defense. So this is as good a spot as they've been in since the Cup. It's not a perfect team. That bottom six, I think, still has issues. And I think on defense, there's still some tweaks I think they're going to look to make. But I'm feeling pretty good about this team right now and where they sit in the West.
I made the point to Megan, maybe it was on the episode with Corey, where just I felt like they needed a quiet summer. It just seemed like since they won the Cup, it was just immediate, Kadri left right away. And so it was, 2C and Newhook and then started the Gabe Landeskog saga. And then you had the Val stuff, and it just seemed like there was so much noise around them since June of 22 that it's been, maybe tougher for us to come up with stuff in the summer, but like, I think they are going to benefit from, we're just going to go about our business this year.
Outside some of the top teams that I view as contenders, I think Carolina is a team that had kind of an intriguing summer with the addition of Keandre Miller, and Vegas obviously getting Marner. But outside of those teams, the other teams that I considered the top contenders ultimately stayed the same or dealt with loss, whether it was loss to depth or more key losses like Ehlers and Winnipeg, losing a 60-point player. It's going to impact them, right? And obviously Avs have lost some players too. Like Drouin's impact to the top six was obviously important once upon a time, but I think his role became less relevant with Gabriel Landeskog returning to health. So all that to say, a lot of the teams who were able to compete for a Cup next year weren't able to do much this summer either. So I don't view it as necessarily a bad thing that this offseason was so quiet. I think that that's just the nature of contending teams. They are at the mercy of the cap, and they're trying to keep a lot of their core intact, like with Florida retaining a lot of those key players, right? That just limits then what they're able to do to change their lineup going into next year. So I don't view it as a bad thing, and that's why I will key in closely then on what Brent Burns does do for this team, because it is one of the biggest changes in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's going to be, I'm interested to watch with the cap consistently going up a bunch every summer. Like, how are the bad teams going to get better? Because now these good teams can just keep their guys. Like they have money now where they can just keep their guys. And like we're heading into next year where I think it's just the same teams that are good again.
Yeah.
And like Utah is the one team where it's like I think they tried to get better, and Montreal in the East where they have young guys and they make the trade for Dobson. But like for the most part, it's just like Marner went from a good team to another good team. Like these guys go from good teams to good teams because they're set up well and they can get paid and they know the situation. That's a good organization. Like I know it sucks, but like Mikko chose Dallas. Like he probably had a list of 3 or 4 teams, it sounds like, and they were all those top 8 teams that he would go to. So I'm interested to see like how this is going to change, because I don't know how these like teams that are stuck in the middle get better without just tanking and finding these franchise players, because I think it's just going to get harder as the cap goes up, because good teams are just going to have a greater chance of retaining their players.
Well, and it's so funny you say that, because I really hadn't thought about that perspective of, but you look at a team like Chicago, and I remember halfway through the year I saw a bunch of Chicago media that was talking about like, well, what's the big move that they're going to go make, and who's the big name player they're going to bring in to help Bedard? Is it Marner? Is it Rantanen? And it's just like, no, you're kind of just running back the same thing that you are. And so, even a team like that has a tantalizing player to play with, like Connor Bedard, players, I don't want to go through that rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go through getting my head kicked in every night. Like I want to just go play playoff hockey right now. That's interesting. I really hadn't, I guess that's because we cover a team that's a good team that isn't dealing with that right now, but that's an interesting thought for sure.
It's interesting. I look at Anaheim gunning for like Chris Kreider, and now they have Jacob Trouba, and they're basically becoming the New York Rangers. It's like they've changed the complexion of their team greatly, but it's come at a huge expense that obviously limits then their ability to talk with Mason McTavish and get serious about what they'd like his future to be there. So all of it comes at an expense. Like I think that the teams that are trying to get better with bigger swings are paying a lot for it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I think it's sort of overvalued, like what the player can actually be for what they're now getting in this cap era.
Anaheim is one of those teams I think could also potentially like sneak around at that 8th spot. But
just wait till you see my Pacific Division prediction rankings.
But even then, like they don't really have like Troy Terry. I'm sorry, but like they don't really have like that one guy who can like who is like their star.
Yeah.
And that's why like San Jose, I think, is going to be that team, because I think Celebrini is that guy. It's just they're a few years away from that still.
Yeah.
Because their defense is just horrendous.
It's bad. And like nobody's under contract beyond like June.
Yeah. So, it's just going to be interesting to watch, because I wrote about how the Avs window, like I look at it as 2 years, like where they can win the cup, and then beyond that, it's like I don't know. But then also like players might just want to come here, and the Avs are just going to keep reloading and going from there. Like you just don't know. Like this was going to be fascinating to watch, because this is the first summer in a long time where teams have legitimate cap space, but there's just no players out there to give it to.
Well, and that was the part, and we've talked about this a bunch, where like I really did think that this was going to be the summer where we were going to see a change in the way the NHL operated, and players were going to go out and hit the open market and cash in and make the money they feel they're worth. And I actually feel like this was the most significant summer of players just staying put.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm totally with you. I really did. I even got a little bit worried. I said, oh man, is this the first summer of a new era in the NHL where it operates more similarly to the NBA, where it's just crazy player movement every year? And I almost feel like it went the opposite direction, where nobody wanted to move because everyone had the money to just keep guys happy where they were.
Yeah, and it's just inherently different than the NBA, where there's only like a few, like you're only playing 8 or 9 guys a night. So teams just like there were a few teams like Dallas had to dump Marchment, and they got rid of Dumba, and people were like, "Oh no, how are they getting out of this cap?" They got out of it, like because teams at the bottom have cap space, but also like a lot of teams just are not, with the cap going up $7.5 million or whatever it did. Like they just weren't pressured into doing anything. They didn't have to dump anyone if they didn't want to, and no one wants to give up a good player for nothing. So it's just going to be fascinating to watch when the cap goes up again, like $9 million next year. Like who the heck knows what's going to happen?
It's why I think the worst you'll ever see Vegas do is the weird like the weird fluky year they had, was it in 22, where they just could not get it together? Because that's, if you have aggressive ownership, you got aggressive management, and you're in a desirable place to live. Like I don't see the Vegas Golden Knights have gotten out of every tricky salary cap situation they've been in. They've attracted every top player that they've wanted to attract. They're fine parting ways with, what was it, a first, second, and a third for guys like Tomas. Like, they're just willing to do the stuff to bring in the top name players. And I think if you've got an organization that's willing to operate like that with the way the cap is going, those teams just, they're not going to hit the traditional reset, rebuild cycle that we've seen for a couple decades in the NHL. I know you weren't born when the salary cap.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, though.
Barely. Let Nashville be a cautionary tale, though, in landing the best available players of the offseason. So, I think that this notion of running it back with the guys you like and paying to keep them there, I think even we're seeing it with the Avs in this summer, why there is a value of the evil, No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I mean, the Avs chose to run it back. And I know we talked about it a little bit with the Olofsson stuff, but like, Evan, for you, just looking at where it's at right now, is there, knowing what we know right now in terms of injuries and all that stuff, it's August 22nd. Are there any changes that you would make, any last moves you'd try to pull off before that September 11th, rookie camp start date?
I don't think they're going to feel pressured to do anything before camp. The one thing I wonder about is, and I was watching you guys with Corey, like you talked about it, the 4 right shots. I think Malinsky is a prime trade candidate, in my opinion.
Interesting.
He's a year away from unrestricted free agency. Like, you're going to have to pay him $2 to $3 million at least to keep him around when you've already got Makar and Manson locked up on the right side. And also, he just doesn't really, he doesn't kill penalties. He doesn't play on the power play. Like, ideally, I think on that third pair, you want somebody that's going to play that spot that can take some minutes away from Kale. So I look at him as maybe a guy that they're going to dangle out there for a third line center if they can.
Interesting.
Just as one of the pieces there. But that's one of the things I'm looking for before camp, just to see, because I think they're comfortable going in the camp with Drury and Bardakov as their third and fourth line centers, at least to start the year. And then they'll let it play out, because what did Corey call it? A November center.
Yeah,
it's different than a May center.
I love that.
And they'll figure it out at some point. Like, McFarland has done it every year, whether or not it's the right move or if they overpay or whatnot. But I think they're going to target guys like a Peugeot and on the island, or like a Zaka or somebody like that. Somebody that they can see coming in and being that third line center down the stretch, and they'll go from there, and they'll play. Like, they've shown they can survive the early months with what they have. And like I said, I think they're in a better spot to start the year than they've been in recent years.
I completely agree with that. You brought up Bardakov. We mentioned him a lot because, was it twice in that presser with CMAC?
Yes.
2 separate times. None of us said his name, and he brought him up twice as an option.
I think it was just once, back-to-back days. Like, he just brought him up out of nowhere.
That's right. That's what it was. Yeah. We know you're the resident Russian prospect insider here. What have you heard on Bardakov, and kind of where are you at with? Is this an Eagles guy, or is this a guy that we should be expecting, to be in the picture coming out of camp?
Well, like we were talking about before, like these 24-year-old Russians who have good spots over in Russia, they're established players. He was coming off the best season of his career. They're not coming here to play in the AHL.
Yep.
They're just not doing that. And if he's in the AHL in December, like, he's probably going to say, hey, I'm going to go back. So I think they like him. From what I've heard, they really like him. He's a very different player than Kovalenko, who's a skilled guy who played with some jam, but he's just undersized. Bardakov is not like, he's not going to be like a top 6 guy. He's just not. Like, he's coming off the best season of his career over in the KHL, but it was still like 35 points in 53 games. The upside there is that all of his goals were at even strength, 17 goals, all of them came to even strength. He kills a lot of penalties. Like, he was a very trusted penalty kill over there. So if he's gonna carve out a role here, it's gonna be as that depth guy who kills penalties. And he's also got a nasty side to him. Like, he does some dumb stuff. I watched a playoff game with him last year where the goalie came out and played the puck and he just ran him over. Like, and he went to the box and they scored. And it's like, yeah, that's not going to work with Jared. Like, you can't do that. So he's got to have to control that. But like, also, like, I think this team could use a little bit of that too.
Mm-hmm.
Like Parker Kelly has some of that in him. Like, this team could use some jam, some guys who are willing to muck it up. And he's not a small guy. I think he's 6'1", 6'2", something like that. So he's a big guy and he can move. So I think they're excited about him. And I think, to me, like, unless they make more moves, like, it's down to him and I think Matt Steinberg, to me, are the two guys that they're going to look at in that bottom six to start the year, because they can both kill penalties and they both add some jam to the lineup.
I think I'm curious because he obviously could play in the middle, and Steinberg is more of a winger.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, do they elevate Jack Drury on that third line to start the year? Do they have Bardakov centering that fourth line with Parker Kelly, and then Steinberg also plays, and we get the best of everything, really?
Wow.
Kivy.
Just cut she's over here trying to criticize me, and she just cut Yoel Kiviranta right out of the picture.
Kiviranta is playing with Ross Colton and Jack Drury.
It's Olofsson.
All right, so now she's cutting Victor Olofsson.
And he's getting elevated to a left-handed defenseman.
Yeah.
Perfect. You guys, I think I solved
Done.
everything.
C-Mac. Just get it done.
But no, I think that's the benefit of, like, a center is never a bad thing. He's not like a great face-off guy. He's never been a great face-off guy in the KHL, but also, like, he is a good center. And you have, like, they trust Parker Kelly, and he can be kind of that, you know, I guess, safety valve for him while he learns the NHL position. If they need to move Parker in the middle, like, it's not ideal, but we know he can do it, and we know they're comfortable doing that, at least November guy.
Right.
So I think he's the guy. I think, like, Chris doesn't just bring up names like that out of nowhere. Like, it's very much, was very much like, we like this guy. We think he can help here.
Is this so? To your point about, like, coming off his best year, and it was still, you know, just a 35-point year. The KHL, I've always, like, it's kind of like the QMJHL of pro hockey, where it's just like crazy skill, a lot of optional defense. Like the top defenders over there, you know, rarely find a ton of success in the NHL. For a guy that, you know, the idea is that the Avs are going to ask him to come in and be an anchor in the bottom part of the lineup. If he's in the lineup, is that part of his game?
Yeah.
Like, do you think that could fit in well with what he does, and he's not going to be a skilled player trying to fit into a mold that he's really not?
Yeah, because he's never been like a top line player over in the KHL. Like, even last year, he wasn't playing like 20 minutes a night. He's playing like, I think, 15, 14 minutes a night. So it's not like he's like whereas Covey was like the guy on that team. Like, he was the number one guy. So this is a very different situation where he's been like a depth guy before. And I think it's very important for this organization to start like grooming these guys, because they need to start developing their own bottom six players. And could you imagine that they find a bottom six player for just like dumping Curtis McDermott a few years ago, which is kind of the wildest thing about all this. But yeah, I think he's fit for that role more so than Covey, because like, he's never been like the top guy on his team over in the KHL. Like, this is kind of the role he's always been, a penalty killer. I don't want to say the words, just blank disturber, because I don't want to have to pay here over in the KHL. Like, he's just been that guy, and I think that's what they're going to look for him to do.
Yeah, I mean, like I do, I think about Kovalenko, and then why does his name always escape me? The Lowbridge kid.
Mironov?
Yeah. On
Still playing in the KHL.
Right. Well, and again, like, he was a guy that came over as a, you know, KHL defenseman of the year, top pairing guy, and just, you know, they were asking him to play third pairing minutes, and it just did not work. And I do think that is maybe something that, you know, you have to at least pause and make sure, like, okay, is this a guy that can come over and fit into a role that we want him to fit into?
Roles very much play something in this, and the team has to be willing to, like, I think, work with those players in that role and develop in that role. And I think that's something that I would say the Avs have struggled with a little bit over the years, where they're a little bit too impatient, where they just say, it's I think Corey talked about, it's hard to earn Jared's trust. And I think that's maybe one of the tougher things for these young kids to do while this team is trying to win. So I think having a guy who's accepting of that role and has been willing to accept it over in the KHL is huge. But like talking about the KHL, my understanding is Gulyev's coming over next year. So that's another reason why I think Malinsky's name would potentially be out there as far as like a trade. But
are you saying like after the end of this season?
Yeah,
or?
Well, next season.
Right. Okay.
Because he has not extended it, and that's my understanding is that they're expecting him to come over. But like with Bardakov, another thing is like his agent last summer said he's going to play one more year, and I think a big part of that is these guys want to learn English.
Yeah.
Like that's a big reason why Nabokov stayed over there too. Like he's not fully comfortable with English, so I think you have to be able to speak English to play at this level. Like it's just the reality.
It's a great point. On the English stuff or
no, I'm just thinking about a lot of things.
Because I was humming on the English.
I read Evan's article earlier today, so I already knew some of his thoughts. That's why I got excited that there was a Steinberg mention, because I think when we talk about some of the internal options vying for roster spots, he's actually left off of a lot of people's lists. I hear Prashepov, Ivan often come up. And so I think Steinberg's an intriguing name that should be in the mix, but I didn't mean to write Kiviranta off. So I think Bardakov intrigues me a little more just because of his versatility in being able to play both wing and center. But the other thing I'm thinking about is the shout out of the left-handed defenseman need that I think is very valid going into the season. You mentioned John Merrill as a name. And so I guess it got me into thinking about the size conversation coming out of these playoffs in particular. I think a lot of people were critical of the lack of size represented on the back end. I was curious, one, if you saw that as an issue, because John Merrill, huge, but another name that's out there is Matt Grzelcyk, and he's a bit undersized, but defensively minded coming off a 40-point season and a left-handed defenseman. Just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think Merrill would interest me a little bit more just because like they don't need a puck. Like I don't think they need another puck mover or like a point producer. Like 40 points, like, yeah, that's great. It's not going to happen here. Like it's just not. Whereas Merrill is very much like a depth guy that understands his role. Like he's been that in and out guy with the Wild for a while now. He's got some size. He kills penalties, which I think is a very important thing. He's just a name. Like I'm still surprised he's out there because he's got to be like just a league minimum type of guy.
Corey mentioned him too. So
whereas Grzelcyk, I would assume maybe he was probably looking for a little bit more money coming off a 40-point season. So, and I think like I mentioned this morning, like the waiver wire, I think they're going to be monitoring that in the preseason, which they always do. Like I know Nemeth was like kind of a joke, but like that was a waiver wire picker that worked up really well.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to like throw Keaton out because I think they like him. And I think he did improve, I think, as the season went on last year, where it's like, okay, well, this guy, like he can play a little bit and he's not like, whereas McDermott playing defense was like, oh, that guy's slow. Like I never felt like Keaton was like slow. Like I felt like he could move a little bit better.
I'll give Keaton Middleton full marks when they first called him up. You and I were talking in the press box and I was like, okay, this will be a fun couple games for him, but like they can't actually play this guy. And I mean, by the end of the season, he still looked like a 6/7th guy to me. But I thought he held his own a lot better than I was maybe expecting. I also don't want to, and now granted, I haven't watched him overly closely or anything like that, but the Alex Gagne kid that they just signed to 6 foot, $1 billion, at a UNH, like he's a lefty that I don't think he's necessarily a threat for right out of camp, but they have shown a willingness for these college free agent kids to get them in the mix. And I think it's honestly a part of their recruiting tool of, hey, if you can play, we're going to give you a look with a really good team. I just think that's another lefty that I would not be surprised to see get a game or two at some point this season.
I don't know enough about him.
I was going to say, I know very little about him. But
I know
big player, left-handed.
Some things, but I'm not sure I see it yet. I think that I don't know, maybe it's because I am a bit jaded with how some of these college guys, especially for defenseman spots, like even get plugged into the Eagles lineup.
Mm-hmm.
It's very competitive, though his size and his style of play perhaps is what would separate him from his peers at this point, because he is a defensive defenseman. A
little bit different than what they've got.
Yeah, so that might help him to separate. But I'm a little nervous to really project anything else past that.
I definitely, I'm not, like I said, I'm not expecting it to be like, this is a guy that could take Sam Malinsky's spot in October. But if he has a good enough start with the Eagles, just because he's so different than what they currently have, I could see that being a.
Sean Behrens is a left-handed defenseman too, you guys.
Well, I was going to say Wyatt. Because I think they
Wyatt.
like him too. I don't know if they see like a full-blown NHL future for him, but like that last game, he was good and he scored.
And he's different from Behrens, but they're both so undersized that I'm not sure why, but I do get the sense that they want to get a little bigger. And I'm not even sure I agree with it, but I do get that sense.
I also do, and I'm sorry, I'm apologizing in advance. I do think Sean Behrens is another guy that, if he's healthy, he's probably not with the Avs anymore. I imagine that would have been an asset. They would have tried to use it last year's deadline when they, had a lot of holes they needed plugged. I don't necessarily know if that's, I don't know if they need an asset like that this year for the needs that you imagine they're going to still address throughout the season.
Well, and if Guliev is coming over soon, this is getting a lot scarier.
Well, it's all like, I don't know. It's hard to judge the value of some of the prospects too. Like with Behrens,
Totally.
like he's a defensive defenseman, but he's undersized. And how do teams value guys like that? You just don't know. I thought he was good in preseason last year before he hurt his knee.
I did too. He was great.
So it's going to be interesting to watch him get healthy. He's probably going to play in the rookie tournament. One of the two guys we know playing in the rookie tournament. So,
is Nabokov coming over for camp?
No, their season will have started.
Oh, that's
by then.
right.
I think Brindley will be the other guy. I would assume who's going to play in that.
Yeah.
But Behrens, I think they like him too, and if he can overcome that, there's trading young defensemen is hard. You want to keep them around if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Obviously, the NHL team matters and what you do there, but the Avs don't have a lot of defensemen that have top 4 potential, and I think he's still kind of on the edge there of what potentially he could be.
How old is he? Do you know off the top of your head?
Probably 22 at this point, 23.
22.
Okay, that's honestly younger than he was in my head.
So we have the same birthday. I should know this.
All right. Not the exact same birthday, because then you should really know this.
Birthday. No, he's 22.
Okay. So yeah, exact same birthday.
We have the same birthday down to the year.
Wow.
No, I mean, he was a kid that I really liked his camp.
I think people just they underestimate the undersized guys. Even if defensively what they're doing is fine, because I think this has happened to Behrens outside of the Colorado Avalanche.
How often do we talk about this with Gerard?
It stinks. You have to overcompensate, not necessarily by making mistakes or anything. I just think you have to work extra hard to overcome that stigma.
I mean, geez, even Cale Makar gets knocked all he's an undersized guy. Yes. He's not very good defensively.
Yes.
It's
well, Guliev will have the same issue when he comes over because he's listed at 5'11", but you guys stood next to him. I don't think he's 5'11".
Yeah,
I will defend his honor too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned goaltending. You're not having to address that. I do also think you made a good point of I do think the Georgiev stuff was causing a bit of a stir in the locker room at a certain point. So honestly, I mean, the fact that we are sitting here, 2.5 weeks, whatever it is before camp, and we're talking about guys like Guliev and Sean Behrens and, Bartikov, it's such a different conversation than we've had for the last 3 summers since they won the cup, where it's been, again, higher end guys and trying to figure out how you scrounge up enough assets. Is Sean Behrens worth enough? If you pair him with a it's just not that level of conversation. And I do think that's something that Avs fans out there should make sure to make note of, is that this team's in a pretty good spot.
I know. I kind of asked Jared that came is this the most drama free you've been to start? Are you going to miss us asking what's going on with Gabe?
Someone has to do that, right? In the first media availability, just to
it will almost certainly be asked. So it's not going to be by me.
Jesse, it kind of sounds like you're volunteering.
Something to rattle Jared a bit. What update can you give us on Gabe? Just to see what he does. Just what do you mean? No, I'm just messing with you.
I also think that's why, Like it's drama free right now. That's why the pressure is on this year. Like you gotta, like 2 or the last 3 years gone out in the first round. Like you gotta figure this out.
Right.
Like you can't. Nate's gonna be 30 when camp starts. Like, and that's crazy to say, but like the window doesn't last forever. You gotta, like, this team's gotta buckle down, and they, the pressure's on to win.
So, all right, the internal pressure is on. I tried to make the argument the other day. I feel like externally, national media, I feel like there's a lot of people that are starting to write this group off a little bit. Do you? I agree with you. I think there's going to be a ton of internal pressure, as I think this group always puts on itself. From the outside, I do feel like there is lesser expectations for this team, to the point where going with the drama-free summer, go out there and just play.
Yeah, I would probably say that's true. I know the 32 Thoughts guys picking them to win the cup because of whatever Nate said at the end of the year, but also like there's less pressure on them because they just haven't been able to get past that second round or first round the last few years. Like it feels like teams are maybe saying, okay, maybe their window is closing. And I wonder if Vegas, if they do that again, if people are going to start looking that way too, because that's another team that's getting a little older. So, the internal pressure is going to be there. Champion, they expect to win when Nate's there. Like the pressure is always going to be on, but you're not seeing teams pick them to go to the finals right now. Like you were in the playoffs, like they were a very popular pick to go very far. But now I'm interested to see, like, when these preseason picks come out, like, is it going to be Edmonton again? Like people are just expecting Edmonton or Dallas and things like that. So,
and even the Vegas odds, where do they have them?
I just think the top 8 teams, like, there's like, I would put Florida at the top because they retained all their guys, but like the top 8 teams, like there's just such a small margin for everything where each of them have an issue.
They're all flawed.
Like Carolina got better this year, but do I trust them? No. Like I don't, and I think they take advantage of being in a really bad division. Florida is the one team I would say, yeah, I trust them, but like Tampa Bay, like Corey and I talk about, like people just forget that they just haven't done anything since the Avalanche beat them. Like they've had good regular seasons, and they blow out in the playoffs.
I saw a tweet last week that it was a Tampa Bay person, and apparently there's chat, and because there was a lot of replies that were agreeing with it, that game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals, that like Andrei Vasilevsky has not been the same since he got house for 7 goals in game 2 of the Cup Finals against the Avs. That he's still been very good, but just that ever since that game, that dynamic around that team has just been different.
Well, I mean, he had a big season last year. I didn't really pay attention to the playoffs. I know they got beat down pretty bad. It's weird, like when we're like locked in with the Avs, like I don't watch like a lot of the playoffs of the other seasons.
I watch whatever is on in the press box.
Yeah, I try to watch whatever is on, and I don't consciously tune into every series, every game.
Yeah.
But I mean, I took heat because I had Kucherov 5th in my MVP voting, because like that team did not miss any guys last year. They were completely healthy. Like I had Cirelli in my top 3 for Selke.
Yeah.
Like you look at the All-Star teams, there was 3 Lightning players on the second team All-Star at the end of the year.
Right.
Vasilevsky was a runner-up for Vezina. Like they had Hedman and McDonough on the Norris votes. Like Hagel had 90 points. Like they just had a bunch of guys who were really good. And I was like, okay, well, these other guys like Draisaitl, like Edmonton and Colorado missed a bunch of dudes.
Yeah,
like
all year.
I had them higher. Sorry, Tampa fans. I know they already hate Avs fans. Or Avs, just everything Avs. So
now say something about Dallas that they'll hate. We'll summon them.
I ate too much barbecue there. Like I really can't go back there another playoff
I
series.
really can't show my face in that town anymore.
We've been there. I counted up. I think I've seen 10 games in person at the American Airlines Center in the last year. I'm just like, I'm over it. I'm good. I'm good on that.
And they moved us to the back row.
Yes,
this year.
My hair does bad things in Dallas humidity.
I feel you. And my corneas still have not recovered from the green laser lights just right in my eyes every 30 seconds on a timer. Evan, really appreciate you coming down, man. We're about to see a lot of each other here.
I know.
In the next couple weeks, but we got a couple super chats here. I think they both pertain to you. Hit those money lights. Yearly check-in on the
Are we in Dallas? What's going on here?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was just complaining about green lights. How's the Avs tracksuit coming? We didn't use that for the photo this
I
time.
know. Instead, you just Photoshopped my I had to do the Reddit thing, and I was like, I asked my boss, I was like, I don't know how to use Reddit. You're gonna have to teach. I had to like look it up.
I wrote on it.
Yeah, I
So-
did. I actually need new shoes before the season starts because
Get them.
when we're on the road, do a lot of walking. Tracksuit, I don't know. I haven't put it on in years. Might not even fit at this point,
But
but
you
it's
still
I think
have
it's
it.
still in my closet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's a purchase I might regret.
Hey.
Whoa.
It's very
no
warm.
regrets.
Wearing that thing is very
Is it
warm.
like
I even
fleece lined?
yeah, and I wore
Oh,
it during
shit.
like a pond hockey tournament. Even then, I was like, I can't wear this. Like it's like 20 degrees out here, and I'm sweating still.
I have one thing, and it's a hockey thing. It's just kind of messing up the order of us signing off for the show.
Well,
but
hold on. Let's do
okay.
this other super
Okay.
chat and then do it. Yes.
Perfect.
One more super chat. Everyone gonna get a Kivy hater hoodie. Megan, get hers first. I haven't cut him from the team, so make sure that she gets hers first. And a last second super chat here from Parker. Thanks for all the awesome content. Love the GS fam. Thanks for tuning in, Parker. We figured that you guys were probably a little sick of the GS fam, so we're bringing in all of our other fam,
The beat mates.
all of our other beat mates. All right, you take us home.
You wrote about Marty Netchus and the lack
Thank you for the
of
super chats.
conversations between Avs and Netchus just recently. I wanted to know your expectation for him as a player this year, if you had any concern around his fit.
No. I just I checked in last week and it was just all quiet, but it's also August. Like I think guys are on vacation and things like that. So I where I sit with this Netchus stuff is like I sit here and I'm like, oh, do you want to pay him this much? I don't know. And I think if you're Netchus's camp, you're sitting and saying, we're waiting for Kaprizov to sign or Kaprizov, because then you're assuming he's going to reset the market for wingers, which did not happen this summer with Mikko and Marner. Like they just kind of stuck around the same price that everyone else gets. So if that happens and he signs for 15, then it kind of resets everything. And he's not obviously like a $15 million player, but it resets it for wingers and top wingers because then Kyle Connor needs a new contract and things like that. But Marty is going to I think if from his point of view, like if you want to go into the season without a contract, he's probably fine with it. He's like, well, I'm going to play with Nathan McKinnon. Like I'm probably going to put up 80 points again. Like what's the rush on my end?
That's going to happen. They'll trade me to Carolina in the middle of the season.
Like he's probably going to have another great season. Like that's just the reality of the situation. So, and I think if you're the Avs, like Marty's I don't know how to put it, because I think if you watched, if you looked at his ice tracker at the end of the day, it would just be all around the outside. And that's kind of the concern there, is that doesn't really go to the center of the ice because he's not that type of player. But they also have other guys that do that. And you need skill to win in this league. So if you continue to do the thing where it's like, we're not going to pay this guy, we're going to trade him and for lesser, guys that just aren't as good, then you slowly are taking away that skill from the lineup. So I think at some point you got to commit and just be like, the cap's going up $1 million, $9 million this summer. We know he fits. He's still pretty young, 26. We should keep him around. And I think he's going to have another really strong year.
Yeah. I what you just said there about if you keep trading these guys, take this one guy and break him into two pretty good guys, and then take that guy and break. Yeah, eventually you get this really watered down version. And that was always my concern with a Mikko Rantanen deal, is you are giving up the best player almost regardless of what happened in that trade. You were going, unless you were going to make a, Mikko Rantanen for Mitch Marner type thing, then, depending on who you ask, you maybe got the better player or whatever. But I agree with that statement you just made there of okay, so you're going to trade Marty Netchus, and are you just going to continue to, water this player, this position down till eventually you're the Seattle Kraken and you got a lineup full of second and third line guys? And so when you put it like that, I almost sit there and go, oh, Evan's totally right. Just sign him and be done with it, and don't mess around with this anymore.
I also what do you think of Marty? What did you think of his fit when he came?
I really liked him, and I think he experienced some struggles in the playoffs that I have boiled down to trying too hard to fit in Bednar's system. And I think he just needs more time to calibrate. I think the regular season success he had is more of reflection of what I think he can do. And it's complementary when he's trusting his instincts a little bit more. I think he was afraid of making mistakes and becoming a liability in the playoffs and abandoned some of that offensive instinct. And I think that kept him to the perimeter, and it kept him from moving. I think he can be a better skater through traffic than he gives himself credit for. And I liked his fit on the power play in season. And I think that he can be a difference maker next year.
I think it's also, and I have written about the Avs are suddenly getting old. Like he's going to be the only top 6 player that's not 30 this year. And 30 is not like what it used to be 20 years ago. Like these players take such good care of their bodies, but also like,
how old's Lehkonen?
He just turned 30.
Wow.
Yeah. What? Really?
So
shit.
A 26-year-old that you can keep through his prime is not a bad thing. And also the other thing is like, Marty was on the block last summer, and I know he's coming off his best year, but like it didn't seem like the market for him was that great. Like I also wonder about how other teams view him. Like if you are really going to get like this huge package from Marty Netjes, like you just don't know. He's coming off the best season of his career, but like you don't know how other teams view him. Like so he fits with you. He's young. Like him and Nate seem to work pretty well together.
Right. Another
like
zone
almost
entry.
immediately, and he's another guy like Brock. Like he came in mid-season, like his head was probably spinning. Like he's going to get a full camp here. And also I don't want him traded because I can talk tennis to him. He's always playing tennis on Instagram. So,
yeah, no, it's an interesting situation with him because Carolina, like there was obviously an issue in Carolina where like he wasn't the guy to like help be able to take over in a playoff series and put pucks in the back of the net. I think it's why they pursued a guy like Mikko Rantanen, because it's okay, here's a goal scorer, here's a shooter. And this is just really to your point of like, how do other teams view him? Because there was obviously something in Carolina that made them say, well, we don't want to commit super long-term to him. He doesn't really solve an issue for us, but can he play a role here in Colorado where it's very complimentary to Nate? You were the first one last year that pointed out how Nate hadn't played with a righty in a long time, and suddenly they had a really interesting dynamic to the way that they were able to play off of each other. So, yeah, and then Megan, you and I have talked about it. Like it was clear he was trying to do maybe too much in the playoffs. Can he just settle into a role here? And like, yeah, you're Nate's. You're riding shotgun with Nathan MacKinnon. Put pucks in the back of the net, gain the zone. And just play fast, and you're going to be good. That's obviously very boiled.
And the idea that like he wasn't like a Nate Leach, like he was leading the league in scoring with Carolina at one point, and he wasn't playing with super talented players there. And I also think that's part of the reason why I'm fascinated with what goes on with the Oilers there, because that system is not built for like skilled players.
No.
And that's why when Mikko got traded there, I was like, why would he sign there? Like, Why is he going to commit his career there where there's just like dump it in, chase it, shoot, just launch at the net? Like it's just bulk there. So it's not fit for guys that want to skate with the puck, carry it in the zone that Marty does, which is why he was kind of a great fit here. And he's also a guy that if you bump him down the second line, like he can skate the puck for those guys. Like him and Nelson might fit at some point too. Like we just don't know, because Nelson's more of a shooter than he's a passer. Like he's been a 30-goal scorer. So I just think like 80-point players don't grow on trees, and there's no guarantee that you're going to move him for another, and he's still young. Like figure out how to make it work, and the money might not be perfect. Like preferably you keep it below 10, but like I think the Oilers deal is like, well, that's the bar.
Yeah.
Like you've absolutely set the low bar there.
That's kind of what we were talking about, potential numbers for Netjes, and under 10 was where we'd like to see it. But I think there are other teams that could afford to pay more. So hopefully some of Marty in this wants to be in Colorado. And that's the sense I get from the player I saw in the playoffs, was a player afraid of making mistakes and trying to do the right things and a little out of his comfort zone in ways and abandoning some of the things that served him so well. And to me, that's a player that wants to make it work in Colorado, at least to an extent, right? Like his earning potential, it's a limited window, and this is the peak of his career to maximize it. So I don't blame him for also having money and interest in the money, but I think there's a lot of incentive for him to find a way to make it work here.
Also, like somebody just asked, will the power play be better this year? He's another guy. Like when he first got here, like remember in New York, that first he was moving all over the place. It's like that's maybe the guy you want to move around because he's not like a super threat to shoot, but he might be the best passer on the team, and he can hit those seams. And he's been a great power play player with the Hurricanes before, so he's another guy that you would maybe want to move around and get creative with. I just want to see some creativity from that power play this year. Like stop, it just
totally
gets stale too much.
Yeah. It's stagnated.
Well, and it's again the point you were just making. Like we were watching him and Nate, and suddenly they're kind of doing the Connor McDavid thing where they're floating around the zone. It's hard to keep a pin on them because every time you look up, they're standing somewhere different. And then they just seem to settle into like not doing that, and it's just so weird.
Look like a men's league power play where it's just like I'm tired, I don't want to move.
Get the puck to Makar at the point. Dallas knew this. Nobody was a threat.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Evan, we really appreciate you stopping by. Like I said, we're going to be seeing a lot of each other starting here in just a couple of weeks. Really looking forward to it. We always love having you on to chat. So we'll try to convince you to come on more this year.
We'll see. We'll see. Don't call me a beat mate anymore.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Fine. That's fair. He's Evan Rawal, Denver Gazette. Make sure you are following him and all of his work. Evan, we sing your praises on this show all the time. We think you are among the best of the best here on our beat. We're very lucky to get to work alongside you. So make sure you are following all of Evan's work as well as the Denver Gazette. I'm Jesse Montano. She is Meghan Angley. We got Chloe behind the glass today. That'll do it for us for this week. And we got some content coming your guys' way, but enjoy the weekend. We'll be back at it on Monday. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.